KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning. Let's find out what's going on in the legislature. Joining us now by Representative Christy Zito. Representative Zito, thank you for joining us.
Good morning, Kevin. Thank you for having me.
Well, before we get rolling, I wanted to say one of your colleagues, Representative Giddings, has emailed me that there is some movement in repealing the grocery tax.
We're hoping so. I'm not real optimistic that it will happen. If Representative Giddings said it's being done, it's absolutely being done. I trust her totally, completely. I think it'll probably, the governor said that it wouldn't be this year, that it would be next year. That's when I expect to see it, but I know that she is working on it. She is just amazing. She's a trooper.
Literally, a trooper and a pilot.
I know.
for people that listen to this program quite a bit and that you see on the trail, what are the reasons that you're hearing that it won't be this year?
I really haven't heard too much why it won't be this year. My own thinking is that next year is an election year, and it will be a good thing to campaign on. I hate to see it be that way, but that's the only reason that I can figure right now that it would. We're going to have to see how the budget comes out also, because we've got some things we need to fund that are huge. Not only that, but there are some shortfalls. I think part of the shortfalls come from the income tax situation, and when we have that money come in, so we know where we're at from tax revenues, we'll have a better idea.
Indeed. When we take a look at this at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, how can all of a sudden, you run a farm, you run a business, how in the world can we just all of a sudden be $16 or $60 million short at the end of the year? You couldn't do that personally. I couldn't do that personally.
No, if you have a crop failure, you can, and farmers are well aware of that, or the weather doesn't work, but this is a little different. But the way it was explained to me is because of changes in our tax code, and people weren't exactly sure how to fill out their W-4 forms and stuff like that. So there will be an adjustment when we see our income tax revenue start to come in.
Okay, so let's talk about some of the other big issues going on. Obviously, our friend Greg Pruitt from the Idaho Second Amendment Alliance making one of his videos yesterday about the gun grabbers. What about the idea of red flag laws? And for people that aren't familiar with red flag laws, can you tell us what they are?
Absolutely. A red flag law makes it so that, for instance, say you use threatening language, or someone decides that you're mentally incapable of having your firearms, or, it's a judgment call outside of the due process of our court system that would allow law enforcement to be able to come and confiscate your gun because someone thinks or believes that you may be of a danger to yourself or someone else. And the important thing we have to remember here, Kevin, with whatever it is we do in law, due process is the foundation of our judicial system. Due process is what keeps us a free people. And whatever we do and whatever we legislate and whatever we think and however we think we're looking out for people and protecting social justice and everything else, we must not ever lose due process.
Right, and we see these going on across the country. We actually have the soon-to-be sworn-in new Attorney General believing in red flag laws.
I know, and it is a scary situation. We talk about, and we hear our president talk about no socialism in our country, but, these things all add to that, because I know most people out there have probably read George Orwell's book, or the book Brave New World. It's incremental. Someone's not just going to show up on your doorstep one day and say, oh, guess what? We're switching from a republic to a socialistic form of government. It's incremental. And back in the day when I was in junior high, high school, even grade school, a lot of our teachers were people who had lived through World War II, people who, some of them had even lived through World War I. People in our communities even were people from this era. Veterans of the Korean War, when I was a little bit older, Vietnam veterans, they knew and they understand the incremental impact that would happen. And I remember hearing really specifically, I believe I was in the 5th or 6th grade, one of my teachers, Mr. Josephson, he told us, he said, the United States will be taken over without a shot ever being fired. He said it will be taken over from within when we move from a republic to a socialist government and eventually communism. And I see what happens, and I see the incrementalness of this, and I see, well, this is what's best for the people. This is what's best for us. This is what's best for society. And those are the things we use. Political correctness. And Mr. Josephson was right. And so, Kevin, we have got to be cautious. Yes, it sounds good on the surface, but you have to really look at what the cost really is when we start to implement some of these thoughts and ideas.
Representative Christy Zito joining us. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. By the way, thank you for attending our State of the Union party.
Oh, that was fun. That was a good night. Thank you for having it, Kevin.
What'd you make of the cheering for people that did not attend? Your thoughts on just being there, and it seemed more like a sporting event than a political rally.
Well, I think the reason that it did is, it's been such a long time, Kevin, since we have had a leader who really speaks like they really truly believe in the greatness of our country. President Trump really, he gives us hope. He instills in us that this is a great country and that there is American exceptionalism. Something else I remember one of my teachers telling us was the United States is the only country in the world that when they're victorious in war, they never take an acre of real estate, and they will rebuild the country that they defeated. They will put millions of dollars back into rebuilding infrastructure and helping society. This is the only country in the world that has that kind of benevolence. And it is an exceptional country, and those freedoms that we hold true are what have made us an exceptional country. And for me, to have someone stand there and be absolutely proud of the accomplishments of our great nation, and proud to be an American, and proud to stand there as the president and say, we are good, and we are great, and we can accomplish these great things. It just was, I think people were just invigorated and enlightened and have been so hungry and wanting to hear that for such a long time, and President Trump provides that.
What else should we be looking out for in this session, ma'am?
We've got the funding of Proposition 2 is going to be a big issue. I get that the people voted for it, and yes, it will go into effect, but it's an unfunded mandate. And to me, in my mind, that should never happen. When you want something or when we vote for something, we should always have to figure out how it's going to be paid for. It's just like me going to you and saying, Kevin, I need a new car. Get me a new car.
Right.
And what are you going to say to me?
Sure.
And then you're going to look at me and you're going to say, how do you expect to pay for it?
Right.
And that's what this is. If the people want it, and when we were campaigning, and even since the vote came in, when people speak to me about Proposition 2, that's fine, that's great. If that's what the people decide they want. Somebody email me, somebody send me a text message, something, and explain to me where you would like the money to come from to pay for this. And people will say, well, there are federal dollars.
Right.
Well, are there federal dollars? We are trillions of dollars in debt. And then we don't know how long the federal funding will last, and it puts us in it positions us under the control of the federal government even more. And let's take it a step farther. So if we have a single-payer form of insurance, we are going to start losing our choices there. It's just one more way for socialism to creep in. So we're hearing a lot in the news about the vaccination debate right now. I'm not making a choice or not. It's not that I'm not making a choice. I'm not saying one way or another whether it's good to vaccinate or not. That is your own personal choice. But I believe it should be your own personal choice. I think you should weigh the pros and cons. I think you should study it out for yourself, and then you should be in a position to make that choice for you and your family. But if we have a single payer and they decide vaccinations are the best way to go and the thing that you should do, and you look at them and you say, I don't want it. I've decided that for my family, because of these health issues or this situation, this is not the best decision for me to make for my family. There's nothing to stop that single payer insurance from looking at you and saying, well, if you choose not to vaccinate, we choose not to insure you. And you have no recourse because there's no market. And the free market system, capitalism is what has made it so that we have the services that we have today, so that we have the choices that we have to make today. We don't have to buy one brand of car. We don't have to buy one kind of cornflakes. We have choices and decisions because we have a market-driven, competition-driven system. And if we lose that in our health care, then we have no more choices. And what they tell us will be what it is. And you will lose the option to be able to decide different if it doesn't work for you.
Well, I know there is a proposal that got out of the Senate yesterday that if we lose the funding, then the Medicaid is off. That would be a challenge, I would think, if all of a sudden people are used to it and it's taken away.
Right. You know, it's like it's a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation here, because we could do that. We could do that if the federal goes away. But just like you just said, then what about all of the people who are counting on it? And here's something else that concerns me about it, Kevin. Medicaid was set up for a specific group of people, a specific. It wasn't supposed to be a broad plan that covered able-bodied people who are able to work and take care of themselves. It's not what it was for. So what happens to those people now? What happens to those people who it was specifically set up for now that they're trying to cover people outside of those parameters? They're the ones who are going to be hurt the worst if this caves and goes away.
But it by the way, Representative Christy Zitto joining us here on 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. It all goes back to the big lie that was told to everyone during the campaign, where you had the TV commercial for Prop 2 that we're leaving $50 or $40 million of Idaho money to the feds. As you know, as most of us know, that follow common sense, there is no free money from Washington, but the promoters of Prop 2 wanted to make sure that everybody had that hook, and, you know, building on the frustration that we have with our own medical situation throughout the country, it was a very effective campaign, although not a truthful one. And now, as any politician, public servant with a brain said, you know, where's the money coming from? And this is what you guys are dealing with now.
Exactly. And, you know, that's why it's important, Kevin, when we make these decisions. Representative Zollinger and we are in a couple of different committees together, and we call it emotional terrorism. And when you make a decision about stuff like this, as difficult as it is, as very difficult as it is, you have to leave emotion out. You have to look at these from a dollar and cents point of view, because that's the bottom line. You know, how are you going to fund it? Where is money going to come from? There really technically is no federal money, and there is no free money. When people say, oh, you know, the government's going to pay for this and the government's going to pay for that, and I got this grant for this and I got that grant for that, that is not free money. Somebody somewhere at some point has to pay that tab. If you walk into the grocery store today and you fill your card up and you check out and you look at the cashier and you say, I don't have any money, they're probably not going to let you out the door. Some grocers back in the day when it was a small hometown grocer, they may extend you some credit for a period of time, but eventually you have got to pay the bill. And no matter what you do in life, somebody at some point has got to pay the bill.
Representative Christy Zitto, we always appreciate you. You always have a wonderful demeanor. Always, we love your smile. We can tell you're smiling on the radio, and we thank you for making yourself available. How much longer do you think this is going to go? Final question here. The session.
How much longer do I think what is going to go?
I was going to say almost this interview, but the final the final session, or this session of the legislature. Sorry.
Oh, I don't know. It's really, really quiet. We're having state affairs only once or twice a week. And, my experience there, my time is, I'm just starting my second term. But this has never happened in the time that I've been there. So I'm not exactly sure what's going to happen. It's just different. And everyone that's been there longer than I have, I hear that comment from them as well. There's just a different feel this year. I think that some of the funding for some of these, like Proposition 2 and stuff, it's taking up a lot of time. It's taking up a lot of energy because we want to do it right. But kind of in a way, you feel like you don't really have anything to work with because there are so many unknowns. And so I don't know how long it will go, Kevin. I think about that, but I can't make an estimation there.
Well, Representative Zito, thank you very much. We appreciate you joining us, and good luck.
Oh, Kevin, it's a pleasure. I love being on the radio with you. And, thank you for standing up for our country. And thank you, Kevin, for allowing us to feel about who we are and what we stand for and this great nation. And, though we're not perfect, this is as good as it gets. And I'm proud to be an American, and I'm proud to be an Idahoan. And thank you for that, Kevin.
Well, thank you for standing up for us, ma'am. You have a great day. You
too.
Bye-bye.
God bless.
God bless. All right, Representative Zito joining us with a legislative update. Coming up next, we have another proposal from the Idaho legislature dealing with marijuana possession. Oh, goody. Can't wait to share it with you next. Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Rolling right along, KIDO Talk Radio. We have a newsletter. We'd love for you to join and be a part of the KIDO Talk Radio family. If you don't get a chance to check out our website every day, currently a blog I posted about the meaning of love. Sure, Kevin Miller, what is this? It's not about chocolates. It's not about experiences. It's not about stereotypically how we celebrate Valentine's Day. It's a salute to everyone who shows something called unconditional love day in and day out, and we so appreciate you. Hopefully, it'll do you justice to take a look at it, and just a few thoughts on the true spirit of love, seeing the unconditional love of a parent or a grandparent to a child, or seeing the world through a child's eyes, as many folks in country music have written about over the years. KIDOTalkRadio.com. What is real love, or what is love? Traffic and weather together, KIDO Talk Radio.
News Channel 7's Larry Gabbard.
Thank you, Larry. They're calling her the new Obama, the female Obama. And those of you that have lived in California, you know who I'm talking about. No, not Gavin Newsom, the newly elected governor, but Kamala Harris, the senator who has garnered national attention and big money for her aspirational presidential campaign. Now, how does this tie into marijuana in the state of Idaho? It all ties together, because the question I need to ask you is that have our morals eroded so much, have our values eroded so much in the year of Clinton, Obama, and others, that we're willing to elect someone who had an open extramarital affair with an elected official? Those of you from the Bay Area, you know who I'm talking about. Willie Brown, former flamboyant mayor of San Francisco. Willie Brown. Everybody loved Willie Brown, right? And Willie Brown admitted, look, he was married, his wife understood, and he had a few afternoon delights, or call it what you will, with Kamala Harris. She admitted it as well. In fact, Mayor Willie at the time gave her promotions based on the fact that they were sleeping together. Known fact. Holy David Letterman, Batman. Is that a disqualification? Or is that a wink, wink, nod, nod? Hey, morals and values are just for all the dopes that go to church. The real America, well, we're all about hanging out, having a good time, and the bonds of marriage, making a vow mean absolutely nothing. Now, I know you're saying, oh, Kevin Miller, that's so 1990s. But is that a disqualification? Now, maybe in the Star Wars bar-like Democratic primary, presidential primary, that we're going to see coming up, where you have just creatures from all over the galaxy wanting to be the next commander-in-chief, and that's a compliment. Star Wars was the greatest movie of all time. Not the new one, the old one with Luke, and when Luke was a guy. Sorry, I'm just being antiquated, but again, that's why we love traditional America. Luke was a guy, not a girl like he is in the new Star Wars. But at 580-5436, we have Senator Harris now saying, weed should be legalized. In addition to being an adulterer or adulteress or whatever you want to call her, now she's promoting marijuana. Would you support that, even if you're not down with her liberal policies? That's next. And a legislator wants to maybe not decriminalize marijuana, but reduce the penalties for marijuana in our beloved gem state. Say it ain't so. Drug-free and proud of it. Kevin Miller, 107.5 FM, 580 AM, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
Blessed to be with you. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So, should we limit the penalties on marijuana in the gem state? One legislator out of Boise says, yes, he's got a proposal. We'll take a look at that. Plus, your thoughts on the president, the end of the shutdown. Sean Hannity saying, not so fast, my friend. This is not a good deal. This does not give us enough funding for the wall. Now, Sean may be right. Remember, in December, it was $5 billion. Now it's 1.7, and they don't call it a wall. They call it a barrier. On the other hand, as we've known in life, there's times to hold them. There's times to fold them. The president has the libs on the run because they continue to embrace the socialism. And when you have that contrast, I believe the president wins. So we'll see how it plays out, and we'll take your calls on that as well. Joining us now, our great friend Jeff Monosso, Fox News Radio. I think this is like day 2 of Jeff Monosso. Good to have you with us.
Hey, friend. Good to be with you.
You know, this Washington state thing where you've got this new state law about guns. Now you've got sheriffs that are refusing to enforce the new gun law measure. We have our own Idaho Second Amendment Alliance. They've started the Washington Second Amendment Alliance. So we've been discussing this, but for people that aren't familiar with this new state law and the controversy involving the Washington state sheriffs, can you give us the details, Jeff?
Yeah, so it's called 1639, and it was passed by voters by about 60% statewide back in November, and it's a law that goes into effect later this summer. That sheriffs in at least 12 Washington state counties are pledging not to enforce. That in part bans people under the age of 21 from purchasing a semi-automatic long rifle, including a hunting rifle. Would also make firearm owners liable if their gun was stolen and later involved in a crime. We talked to one sheriff in Klickitat County, Sheriff Bob Songer, who told us that 1639 is not going to make his county citizens safer. He says that bad guys are going to have guns regardless. And he's one of many sheriffs that are and state lawmakers that are calling the new gun law unconstitutional and saying that the courts should first decide a federal lawsuit that's been filed against 1639 on behalf of the NRA and the Second Amendment Foundation. And this is really one of many fights, as you just described, happening throughout the country.
Well, you take a look at that. That's a huge precedence when you think of law enforcement officers refusing to enforce the law because they disagree with it.
Well, it's you know, this is a situation that's not only happening and with gun laws, it's also happening with immigration laws. And you know, I mean, how will these sheriffs be punished? I'm not sure. I mean, you look at California and immigration laws and the state attorney general there telling any government official, government worker, whether it's law enforcement or not, that if you enforce any sort of federal immigration law, that you'll be held liable. You'll be locked up and charged, and so that's a big threat there. So I'm not sure what's going to happen to these sheriffs. I mean, we'll have to wait and see what a federal court has to say. Supporters of the measure say they're disappointed by the pushback. But again, note that this is not going to go into effect until July 1st. But part of this law also includes mandated firearm safety training, mandated gun locks, and also extended waiting periods. And that's not what the sheriffs are fighting. They're all for that. But according to Bob Songer, Sheriff Songer, to tell an 18-year-old or a 19 or a 20-year-old man or woman who just got back from fighting overseas for our country that they can't possess a hunting rifle to go hunting with their family or possess a firearm that happens to be a semi-automatic, which is basically most firearms, to protect their family. They believe that that's a violation of the Constitution, a violation of the Second Amendment. So they're going to wait and see what the courts have to say.
Amazing. The controversy continues. Jeff Manasso, appreciate you throwing in the immigration thing in California. It really expanded our story. Thank you very much. Hope you have a great day, sir.
You bet. Take care.
Take care. All right, Jeff Manasso joining us. Remember, when you hear Fox News on the radio, you're listening to KIDO Talk Radio, not one, but two stations. 107.5 FM, 580 AM. Our commitment to the Treasure Valley continues, where we have this issue coming up from the state of Idaho, right? State of Idaho, where in the legislature, and if you missed our interview with Representative Zito, you can catch that at our website, KIDOTalkRadio.com, where we talked a little bit about the repeal of the repressive grocery tax, how that has has slowed down. And we'll continue to hold these folks accountable. We want to thank her for joining us. If you missed it, though, it is available on our website. So here we go. What do you think of this one, true believers? A person convicted of misdemeanor marijuana possession in Idaho would be able to ask a court to change the conviction to an infraction under a proposed legislation introduced Monday. What would that be, like a demerit? What's an infraction? It's not a citation. It's not this. It's an infraction. Is it like, and did your teacher ever do this? If you misbehaved in class, they have these things called chalkboards, not whiteboards, but chalkboards. And they actually had chalk, and they would put your name up in chalk. And if you were a bad monkey, they would put a check next to your name. And then you'd get another check, and that was a demerit or detention or something of that nature, right? What are they going to do? All of a sudden put our names on chalkboards for marijuana possession? Because let's face it, marijuana is not a gateway drug. Marijuana is harmless. You can get high and have a good time. You're not hurting anybody. You're not hurting your lungs. You're not hurting your family. You're not hurting your work. In fact, major employers like people that are on marijuana. Major employers think people that smoke dope are the greatest. Kevin Miller, Drug Free Idaho, Governor Little, well, they don't know anything. Kevin Miller is eating too many cheeseburgers. Governor Little is on the ranch. And Drug Free Idaho, well, they're just a buzzkill. No, we're the big three when it comes to stopping this, when it comes to stopping this nonsense. So here we have it. Representative John Gannon, a Democrat, imagine that, a Democrat promoting decriminalizing marijuana, told the House Judiciary Rules and Administration Committee that the provision only applies to a person's first offense and if the amount of marijuana in possession is half an ounce. What is that, a joint? I know we have a lot of marijuana experts at 580-5436, 580-KIDO. I hear it all the time. I've got some guy emailing me wanting to talk hemp. I don't know what we're going to do. Hemp is illegal in Idaho. What's that? We should have asked Representative Zito about her bill to make that legal. Probably you're right. Under Idaho law, possession of 3 ounces or less of marijuana is a misdemeanor, punishable up to a $1,000 fine and a year in jail. Now, think about this. All of you guys that smoke that stinky weed. A year in jail for 3 ounces of the dope, $1,000 fine. Now, Representative Gannon says the change from misdemeanor to an infraction only can occur after a court-made decision. So after pleading guilty or finding by guilt from a jury. Now, what is this? So that's up to the judge? It's going to be an infraction. Now, what do you think about this one? First-time offenders would have the option of paying $250 or complete 8 hours of community service along with 4 hours of drug and alcohol education classes. Is that going to stop people from smoking pot? I don't think so. The committee voted to introduce the bill and hold a hearing on it later sometime in the future. If the bill passes through committee, it would lead to the House floor for debate. And then you have several committee members wanting to make sure that Idaho legalizes hemp. I say no. At 580-5436, 580-KIDO. So we have that issue there of, again, changing misdemeanor pot possession to an infraction. You would get a demerit and you would have to spend time after school. Not to be outdone, we have Kamala Harris from California running for president. She was on a show called The Breakfast Club. Hi, everybody. Welcome to The Breakfast Club. Here's some hash browns. Where she was asked about the most compelling, the most relevant issue of facing The Breakfast Club. Hi, everybody. It's The Breakfast Club. And that would be smoking marijuana. Here's how she responded. I want to know, did she inhale?
I believe we need to legalize marijuana. We need to move it on the schedule so that we can research the impact of weed based on a developing brain.
Okay.
Have you ever smoked?
I have.
Okay. Like in
And
college,
I inhaled. I did inhale.
There we have it. She inhaled. That's presidential, right? I love these entertainment shows that feel there's like a buzz on politics. So what do? They run and try and be very relevant. It's the old Don Imus offense. Don Imus, retired, legendary guy, was a curmudgeon, a shock jock, started covering politics, and now you see entertainment shows trying to do the same thing.
It was a long time ago. But yes, I think that it gives a lot of people joy, and we need more joy.
Yeah, imagine that tone of voice to Putin. Love the compelling music here. Sets the mood. By the way, in 2018, Harris made a similar point, saying that there are more people of color incarcerated because of drugs than others, and went on to try and legalize marijuana. There we have it. And from a tweet from Kamala Harris, the fact is marijuana laws are not applied and enforced in the same way for all people. That's why I signed on to Cory Booker's Marijuana Justice Act to make marijuana legal at the federal level. It's the smart thing to do. Do you agree with Senator Harris, President Harris? Would you like a president who indulges? One thing you can say about Donald Trump, he doesn't drink, does not drink, has never drunk in his life. Would you like a president that smokes dope? Tom in Nampa, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Well, good morning. I'm with you totally on this marijuana.
It's
business.
the big woodcutter.
Yeah, right. Only don't give me the cut it short button without warning. I was sitting there talking, and all of a sudden I was on a dead telephone.
You got cut off. Well, my bad. So what was it? Big Chip Tom? What is your name again?
Big Tom Woodcutter.
Big Tom
I was
Woodcutter.
over-
Yes. All right.
Yeah, I lived in California back when it was legal to cut a tree down.
All right, Big Tom.
This Kamala Harris, or Kamala or whatever, she's about as dumb as a camel, that's for sure. Look at the voting trends of Colorado, Washington, and California since they legalized this stuff, and even before leading up to it. Look at it. It's gone Wackoville altogether. You hear that gun bill in Washington passed for 60%? In California, 68% of the voters voted that you can't even get ammunition without a background check. And, we don't need any more of this. And as far as even legalizing hemp, that's just it may be harmless. They make rope out of it, stuff like that. But the people that are going to start growing the hemp will start doing what they did in California to give it a higher THC. And first thing you know, it's a camel's nose in the tent.
Now, wait a minute. So you're saying that the hemp people have an agenda. They get it in, and then once it's in, they start raising the THC level?
Well, yeah. Well, you know how they raise it down there is I think what they do is they pull up all the male plants, and just the female plants alone will increase the THC level. I had a fight with a neighbor down there on a rental property I had over his stupid marijuana crop next door, stinking the whole neighborhood up. And I threatened to grow some male plants next door so it would basically devastate his crop. But the city beat me to it by, outlawing it at the city limits because it stunk the whole neighborhood up. It's terrible.
Yep, stinky.
You know, it's just one little piece at a time. This decriminalization bill, of course, we have put all the jails full of pot smokers, but it just softens it. That's what they did in California in '76, and little by little by little, they got full legalization. And if Kamala Harris, you know, that's a resume enhancement in California, that and extramarital affairs. The current governor basically had an extramarital affair with his campaign manager when he ran for mayor of San Francisco.
And his ex-wife, of course, is dating Donald Trump Jr. Who would ever cheat on her? Kimberly Guilfoyle.
Yeah, well,
yeah.
You know, Kamala Harris is a half-wit, and I think if more of them kind of people vote and run in the Democratic Party and attach on to occasional cortexes of green bill, the voters are going to say, hey, what kind of idiots are they here? And it makes, you know, even though I don't like Trump that well, I wish that guy Kasich would run. But as it stands now, I'll end up voting for Trump over any of these idiots that are running the Democratic Party. And it just seems like they're just emboldened to go further and further out there. And the mass body politic in America is more middle of the road. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree, but, you know, you need to get on the Trump train.
Well, I have to because it might be the only thing in town. Anyway, thanks for not pushing the panic button there too soon, and I'll see you later.
We'll be seeing you. Thanks. Appreciate it, Big Woodcutter Tom. Your thoughts, decriminalizing marijuana, you get a demerit as opposed to jail in Idaho. Next, Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to Art, calling from Star, Idaho on KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Art.
Good morning, Kevin. Listen, I've heard there's a couple things here on the issue. Marijuana one, but the priority one is the cell phone issue. If you pass a law to limit usage of cell phones while you're driving down the road, that's not very effective because people constantly break the law. And the reason being is that when a law is passed, people only follow the law if it's beneficial to them. And if it's not beneficial to them, they break it. And they play the game of maybe I won't get caught. So you need to have a technological solution. And I thought about this a little bit. And I believe that what could be done is that an application could be written for the cell phone that ties it into the GPS systems on cars. And so that if you get in a car and the car miles an hour, it disconnects the cell phone automatically. And if you wish to use the phone, you'd have to pull off the road like to a safe area and use the phone. Okay. Now that would solve the problem. It's be very easy to be written to encourage people. The insurance companies could get behind this and say, well, we'll give you a 3% discount on your insurance premium if you put this application. And we could call the program Cell Block. If you got the Cell Block package on your phone, you get a discount on your insurance because it makes you a safer driver. The problem with the whole idea is that now you're going to have people who go out and buy a throwaway cell phone, okay, to show the insurance company that they got Cell Block on their phone, and then when they get in the car, they use another phone. So it is really a conundrum. It's a difficult thing. I realize people who are very familiar with things of the past that the cell phone tower technology came into existence to address a problem that existed before cell phone. I used to drive around with citizens band radios in their car, and they'd break the law. But you'd have people riding around with 50-watt boosters in the trunk of their car, and they'd broadcast all the way around the planet. They're constantly stepping on each other, you know. The human being is basically a very perverse creature. So there is a severe problem here, but I believe that the legislative aspect is not really going to fix it because people are going to ignore it. But I believe if you tie the cell phone into the GPS tracking system to shut the phone down, it should have a significant impact on getting people to train them not to use the phone while you're driving, because it does increase accidents every place. You know, I mean, you got the
No,
cell
Art,
phone towers along the road.
Art got to run, but thank you, brother.
Yeah. Okay. Catch you later. Bye bye.
Catch you later.